Now, one of the most useful things I learned in Navy boot camp was to fold my underwear. The Navy way. And it was very precise. It had, am I right, fellow veteran? It had to be folded in such a way that certain seams had to touch certain points. When you folded your t-shirt, you had to fold it in such a way that the folds were skinny, fat, fat, skinny. You didn't do fat, skinny, skinny, fat. You didn't do that. It wasn't done. Beds were made with hospital corners. Perfect 45 degrees angles on the pillows. Blankets folded to a perfect square with the top layer folded back, oriented perfectly to the bed. Centered. Spit shining shoes. Tying the perfect double Windsor knot on a tie. And getting it just the right length so it touched your belt buckle. Learning what a gig line was and how to keep it perfectly straight. Details. And I remember about the second week of boot camp saying, what has this got to do? I'm here to train nuclear power. I am headed to be a nuclear reactor operator on a submarine. Who cares if my tighty whities line up with the tag? And Chief Marco, he was 5'3", one of the few men that scared me. He was an aviation boatswain's mate, did 3 tours in Vietnam. His last 2 tours, he was an interrogator. The first week of boot camp, he came to me, and he says, you know, all I got to do to get you to spill your gut is smash your thumb with a hammer. And I knew he'd do it. But I made a mistake stenciling my jacket. And I was doing push-ups until I couldn't do push-ups anymore. Not because I couldn't physically lift myself up anymore, because the pool of sweat would not let my hands purchase on the floor. And so when I'd go to push up, they would slide out, and I could no longer do push-ups. I had sweat, a puddle that was probably 3 foot in diameter, and I could not do push-ups. And he still made me try to do push-ups in that spot. And he just said one thing to me. How is the U.S. Navy going to trust you with a $10.9 billion submarine if you can't do the little things? Pay attention to the details. What got me, really set me off on this message was a picture on Facebook, and it showed a shopping cart out in the middle of a parking lot. And I got to bring it up so I'm going to read it just right. And it said very simply, I don't know a single successful person that leaves their shopping cart in the middle of a parking lot. If you're too big to do the small things, then you're too small to do the big things. And that just stuff started coming really fast. Unusual for me, I have one verse I'm working off tonight, and that's Luke 16, 10 and 11. Those who are faithful in the very little things is also faithful in much. And one who is unrighteous in very little things is also unrighteous in much. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous wealth, who will entrust you with true wealth? You know, God is in the character business. There are some incredibly gifted speakers that can sit there and sell snowballs to Eskimos. They can talk to birds out of the trees. But God will not use them because they haven't proven themselves. They have not been faithful with the little stuff. Many are on a career path, but few are on a character path. Faithfulness. I borrowed this, I'll be honest with you, I borrowed a lot of this from Dennis Rainey in the message I listened to. He says, are you trusted by friends? Are you reliable? Can a pastor trust you with his flock? Do you think ushering working in the parking lot beneath you? When the chips are down, can you be trusted to unplug the toilet in the ladies' room? Do you want to be part of a vanishing breed in today's generation? Then become a person that is faithful. One that doesn't shirk menial tasks. A person who follows through. A person whom others can count on, whether things are rough or smooth. His word is good on little stuff, as well as mammoth, gigantic tasks. It used to be said, my word is my bond. And right now, most people's word, I want 3 forms of identification and 2 witnesses. Because today's society places no value on that type of stuff. He or she, this refers to women too, this is not just men. He or she is the kind of person who promises to call and does so on time. They say they'll do it, and they do it exactly like you asked them to. They mop a floor, and they take pride in it. The first 2 years of this church, when I was here, I was out in the parking lot every Sunday. That's what I was trusted to do, and that's what I did. I was out there in the snow. I was out there in the rain. I set up a chart how to maximize, Al and I set up a chart how to maximize how many cars we could fit in that parking lot. We had all the safety rules figured out. It's a parking lot. People can park their cars. But we were building for the day that we had to hit the capacity of that. We had vision that at one point we would be parking 200 people in that car through 3 services, and we had to have cars in and out and a flow to make it work. I remember Al and I, we took pride in that. I remember being out there with you in the pouring rain. I remember being out there in the wind. I know, the lightning flash. We did leave that day. Are you that faithful person? If you are, there are a few words that can be used to describe you. Trustworthy, dependable, reliable, true blue, and responsible. All those names saturate one recurring theme: character. As I said, God is in the character business. Our society has a growing feeling of entitlement. I deserved a promotion without the process. I deserved a position of prestige and a responsibility without having to pay the price in being faithful today. All too frequently, this is discarded on the altar of ambition. Today, oatmeal is ready to eat in 60 seconds. Our prescription lenses are ready in an hour. We can have a house built in 60 days. We are in a culture that is used to getting what we want instantly. We aren't used to working patiently, or waiting on anything, even a hamburger, let alone God. 15 years, a rightful king of Israel hid in the desert. 15 years, Joseph was in prison for a crime he didn't commit. 15 years, Paul hid in the Arabian desert. 40 years, Moses shepherded sheep. Elijah was a man that poured the water over Elijah. The man who poured the water over Elijah's hands for 6 years before performing a single miracle. What we want today is much more without the very little. We want the tip without the toll, the gain without the grind, the sweet without the sweat, the prize without the pain, the perks without the perseverance. Today, duty, diligence, hard work, attention to detail is a rare commodity in any endeavor, whether it be at home, work, or at church. We are a sloppy generation. Could it be that we are chasing after the wrong thing? Do we have to have it our way, regardless of what it costs? Could that being faithfulness at home is shredded by the pursuit of just one more dollar? We have become a sloppy generation with all kinds of cover-ups for unfaithfulness. Like, it just fell through the cracks. This is stupid. Oh, I just forgot. My favorite is, I don't have time. Another favorite, I don't know how. Here's what you're saying every time you say one of these. Other priorities have chosen before the thing you wanted done. My priorities overrode the priorities needed to grow the church. And I struggle with this. Confession's good for the soul. There's times I don't want to do this. There's times I don't want to do my devotions. There's times I don't want to come to church. There's times I'd like to sleep in on Sunday morning instead of being one of the first ones here. Making sure all the other things get done that need to. There is so much that makes church happen on a Sunday. The last one to fall in place is the preacher taking the pulpit. There are so many things that have to happen for that to happen. It has to be done well. It has to impress the newcomer. It has to honor God. You know, if we're not honoring God, let's just go home. We'll put the Elks Club out front and let the church just, be the Elks Club. If we're not here to honor God, we're in the wrong place. Some things to consider. How do you know if I'm faithful or unfaithful? In today's society, when I compare myself to the average person, I do pretty good. But God asks tougher questions. I say things like, I agree with you, but how do I know I will be a faithful person by others? That's a good question. How do I know that? Well, let's look at the following questions to consider. Do others constantly have to remind you to get things done? Do you habitually forget to follow through? What does your word mean? Is it a premium seal that secures the deal? Or is it a flimsy wrapper that can be taken off and thrown away with ease? My favorite phrase is the definite possibility of a maybe. Do you return phone calls? Do your children believe you when you promise you're going to do something with them? If you promise you'll be home, do you call if you're going to be late? Deadlines are missed. Stuff comes up. Things derail us all the time. A call, a note that a deadline is going to be missed places value on the other person's expectations and lets them know that you're responsible and can be trusted. I would rather have a person tell me 10 times, I'm working on it, but I can't get it, but I'm doing it, here's what I've got, maybe you can help me with this, than to constantly just duck and run and avoid me. Maybe you are faithful, a cut above the herd, but I bet you work with people that could use a double dose of what we're talking about. What would happen to the church if suddenly we had a dramatic rush of people falling all over themselves, trying to be faithful with the little things in their work? When the pastor says, we got enough volunteers, go home. Okay, we're going to take on this project because I've already got enough people doing this. Well, let's take this on over here. That's a pastor's dream. Question: do you think excellence is a mere myth? An ideal that no longer applies to today? What would happen to our homes if there was an epidemic of husband and wives infected with being faithful in the little things, in their relationships with each other, their children's, and their parents? Do you think that would change the world as we live it? Do you think we might actually see that one elusive word we always talk about, we've been waiting on for as long as I've been coming to this church? Revival? What if we did what we actually promised to do? What would happen to the next generation if we demonstrated this way of life? That this was the accepted norm, not this pie in the sky. This is what happened in the Bible, but it has no application today. Are we raising a generation of children that will embrace selfish pursuits or faithfulness? If they don't learn faithfulness from us, who are they going to learn it from? They're not going to learn it from TV. They're not going to learn it from their friends. They're definitely not going to learn it from the school. They learn it from us. It's such a simple process. Fold your underwear. Be faithful in the little things. Now, here's the important one. What do you think the impact of Christians on non-Christians would be? When that worker stands up head and shoulders above other workers. When that cash register operator does her job nice and is polite and smiles despite your miserable attitude. What does that tell about? I've said this so many times it's not funny. I swear every time I come up here I say the same thing. If they don't see the difference of the people in here from the people out there, there's no reason for them to come. The world's values are all fouled up. Sticky and just things the world values is just ridiculous. Do we admire the man who is successful, or do we admire the man that is faithful? Do we give awards for production or for trustworthiness? Are moms honored for slugging it out in the trenches and raising a family? Or do we sling dirt on the occupation by talking about women who make it big time in the business world? And I'm not saying that both can't be done. But let me tell you something. Mothers that work at home have the toughest job in the world. Since Jesus said that the much more depended on our faithfulness, so let's join with a growing number of Christians. If we can join with other Christians and we start talking and living faithfulness, and when they do it, give them the recognition. Let's give them a standing ovation. You know, there's no prize for faithfulness. There's no prize for trustworthiness. There's prizes for bringing the most people to church. You get recognition. There's pats on the back for leading a great worship service, giving a great message. But if you live like hell when you leave the church, what's it prove? Absolutely nothing. Let's cheer our family members on. A faithful act performed when no one was looking. That's integrity. That's taking character to the next level. A husband who's honest preparing his taxes. A mother who faithfully is taking time to rear the next generation. So much of the work unseen and unappreciated. A child who tells the truth instead of lying, even though the consequences are painful. How do you view the details? As picky little things to be ignored that get in your way? Are they stepping stones to receive the true riches of the kingdom? Value, character, faithfulness. Chuck Swindoll said this: it's never too late to start doing what's right. If you want more in God's kingdom, then do little faithfully. Do the little faithfully.